This is the limestone lowdown. Hear the sound when you lie through the issues all around. From every corner, let's make it clear. The change we need is starting here.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the Limestone Lowdown.
Yep, we are with a special guest today. We have got Pastor Cody Gilliam with the Belle Mina Methodist Church, and him and I crossed paths, a few months ago?
That's right.
We met, and come to find out, we are our alma maters. We're big high school rivals, and we didn't even know each other then.
Well, they were in those days. They had to kill that football game for a little while.
Yeah.
And
the Cotton Classic.
Yeah, they did, and then put it back. But yeah.
So yeah, small world. We kind of we got to reminisce on that, and then we've after
You're
talking,
close to the same age, and you several of the same people.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
graduated
So-
high school with my stepbrother.
I did.
And then we've just in our fight in the city. He also has a fight going on in Belle Mina too, and I just kind of want to give you an opportunity. Thanks so much and we are in this beautiful church. He said it was built 1897. He was kind of telling us a little bit of the history that they decided to build this church, and they did ice cream socials to raise money to build this church, and it's fabulous. The stained glass, I love it. It's gorgeous. But thanks for having us here and for coming on and talking. So just to get started, kind of what got you into ministry and then led you here to Belle Mina?
It's a long story. I'll try to not be long-winded as preachers could be. But back when I was 18, I felt God's call to ministry. I approached my pastor, Jim Stringfellow, the Reverend Jim Stringfellow at my home church, Hazel Green Methodist Church, and asked him, really, what does that mean? And he said, well, let's go and figure that out. And I can remember I really wanted to be a band director, to be entirely honest with you. I play the saxophone, still play on occasion, not enough that I feel like I can play in front of people anymore. And I can sing. And so I just really wanted to have a career in music. I would rehearse and then try out at different colleges and have no scholarship. And I can remember praying to God, God, what do you want me to do? And if I want to do this, if you don't want me to do this, close this door in my face. And I can. It's not an audible voice, but I could hear a voice while I was practicing for the very last time that said, I'll show you what I want you to do. And I finally did get a scholarship for $200 a year at JSU. And even back in 2003, 2004 standards, that was not enough to do much less buy some books. And so that door was slammed in my face. And so continued on with that route with Jim Stringfellow. And back in those days, the Methodist Church would give licenses to preachers that didn't need licenses to drive. So at 19, I became the Reverend Cody Gilliam, and was the associate pastor at my home church. When you're really young like that, they try to progress you forward and upward, and so they moved me around a little bit. I was the associate at Huntsville First Methodist for a year. After that, first year, for 3 years, I had two churches, Epworth as an associate, and a church named Wesley as an associate.
Okay.
And then West Huntsville and Valley. I'm sorry, at Wesley I wasn't the associate, I was the senior pastor. At West Huntsville I was the senior pastor, and at Valley I was the associate, and then I got to fly on my own in a church called Owens Crossroads Methodist Church. But before I got to go there, I started a food pantry at West Huntsville, and because I could see a hole in the community when the Downtown Rescue Mission moved from there to its current location. And so I decided to do that. I started that food pantry. And after I was moved to Owens Crossroads, my first really true solo venture, I just a few months after, I got word that two people I had really started the food pantry for had been murdered at the church. Terry and Anthony Jackson. And very good people, very wonderful people, cared very much for them. And it was a lot of tragedy that happened there. And kind of wrestled, honestly, with God over that, you know, why he would let that happen. And, you know, now I would say that I wouldn't pull them away from that celebration they're having in heaven right now, right? But anyway, I didn't come here to talk about that tragedy, but maybe the tragedy we're experiencing right now. But you know, once I got away from that church, I flirted with the Cumberland Presbyterians a little bit at a church called Walnut Grove Cumberland Presbyterian Church. Was their pastor for a year, and then went back to the Methodist as an associate at the Harbor. It was a strictly contemporary church, which is really out of my element. Where we are right now is my element, traditional worship, if I'm honest with you. And then was an associate at a larger church called Grace Methodist in Monrovia, and then was appointed here. And while I've been here, I've flirted again with the Cumberland Presbyterians. So I have two churches. I have this Belle Mina Methodist Church, and down in New Hope, I have that Walnut Grove Cumberland Presbyterian Church I had years ago. I picked them back up. They didn't have a pastor.
So do you just like rotate on Sundays? Or?
Well, I like to tell people at 9 a.m. I'm a Methodist, but at 11 I'm a Presbyterian.
There you go. Okay.
And so a little bit of church history, and I'm the only person that really cares about this kind of thing, but the reason the Cumberland Presbyterian split from the main branch is because they believe what the Methodists believe. Okay. That's kind of a short way to say it all. So I don't have to change my sermon on Sunday.
You just got to do it twice. Yeah, you got to drive over there.
That's it.
I gotcha.
So,
okay.
But that's kind of how I got here.
Okay.
How my calling happened.
And how long have you been here?
3 years.
3 years. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Going on my fourth, and I can remember at the Iron Bowl 2 years ago, I got a phone call from a local resident who clued me into what was happening with the quarry. Mm-hmm. And
let's give a little bit. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but I want you to give a little bit of backstory. So how it came for us to meet was talking about the rock quarry. Mm-hmm. So if you'll give just a little bit about like within the community. I know that you were getting there, but just kind of start from the beginning and go into all that.
So I got that phone call, and somebody from Tennessee had circulated a flyer to everyone who lived in the vicinity to alert them, because they were trying to fly under the radar and put this thing in without anybody knowing. Mm-hmm. And I've come to learn recently that some people in the community had heard some rumblings about it, but just kind of, they've heard some rumblings about a lot of things out in the county, so they just didn't know what to believe. Well, this seemed to be true, and they were filing for some temporary permits with ADEM, Alabama Department of Environmental Management, and which means that's, if they're going to pay the money to do that, they intend to do it. Yeah. They had evidently Grace and Carter and Son had rented the property from the people that currently own the land for the mineral rights. And
isn't that just some random LLC?
It is a random LLC, and because we are in litigation with that random LLC, I won't name them right now.
Right, but I was just making sure that it wasn't like a person, that it was just some random LLC that owns this.
It is a person.
Okay.
A family, really.
Okay. But not a local family.
They're Huntsville.
Okay.
So, do you call that local or not?
Well, no, I did.
How does was it Illinois? How does that fit in Indiana? How does that fit in there with that?
So that LLC was incorporated in Indiana.
Okay.
And so that's where the lawsuit against me, my church, another church, and that pastor, and a farmer has come about. So
when this letter started circulating, I know, because we live in Athens City, that they would say, hey, because we actually had a piece of property across the street from us that was zoned for a single family house, and they were trying to make it kind of into like an apartment, a triplex, duplex type thing, and so they had to go and get it rezoned and things like that. But being in the county, there's really not any sort of those restrictions. So was this letter like, hey, we're going to go vote on it in the county, or what was
No, this was just a concerned citizen
that started circulating it.
That evidently looks for these kinds of things that go into communities like our very own, and tries to, these
get ahead of it, right?
Yeah, so that these people can mount.
So was this an anonymous letter? You know who this person is?
I do, but I'm unwilling.
No. I'm just saying, we love a good anonymous letter. We've gotten some ourselves.
Yeah, that person, to help that person continue their fight.
I was just saying, was it anonymous or not?
Because I was just thinking from the city perspective, like they have to do those things, right? But I know that in the county, because after talking with you, not off record, basically, it was like, hey, within the county, they have no restrictions on land. So they can literally put whatever they want. And that is one of the things like within the county. So they can just show up and, hey, we're going to put this rock quarry here. But fortunately, you do have those local residents that are like, hey, we want to preserve this wonderful community. And that's really what has brought all of y'all together over these last 2 years.
Certainly so. And one of our initial fights was to try to persuade the county to zone. Right. Because they do have the ability to zone. Correct. They just choose not to.
Absolutely.
And it's actually in the Alabama code that Limestone County can zone however it wants. Each county has its own laws and have to be passed by the Alabama legislature. And so they have the ability, they had the ability to stop it from the beginning.
But now they still have somewhat of an ability to put certain restrictions for advancements. Because as we were driving here, Jared even said, like, my goodness, this has expanded.
Yeah, quickly they encircled the entire property they're renting with berms. And that's probably because of our fight. You know, they wanted to try to get ahead of some of the unsightliness and the noise and all of that. So before we even asked, they put up the berms. And so I'll give them that. But they have very rapidly expanded. And one of our initial tactics was to work with community members to craft legislation and have it presented by Parker Moore and Arthur Orr on the state level to limit blasting in Limestone County that's within, I think it was 1.5 miles, of an historic building like this. And so
10 feet from here, right?
But almost, yeah. But and so, the idea was to, further protect other historic spaces, because we have so many in Limestone County. It's really rich in that. Quickly, Alabama, the wording was probably needed to be workshopped because they said blasting. We said blasting in our legislation, and Alabama Power came along and said, I don't know about that. We might need a blast. And so they got some...
watered it down.
Well, no. What is it called? I'm sorry, y'all. I'm losing my train of thought. But it's a lot of information. But when you get people, you pay people to lobbyists. They paid for a credible amount of lobbyists against this. Alabama Power did, and the Road Builders Association did. I was surprised, how many lobbyists were there for the meeting. And if we had said quarrying activity, it would have taken Alabama Power out of it.
Okay.
But we said blasting. And live and learn. It was too late. We couldn't exactly, because it was at the very end of the session, and then it all was here before we could do anything. Another thing we did was we appealed to Alabama ADEM, Alabama Department of Environmental Management, ADEM, to stop the license, and we got all kinds, through the Southern Environmental Law Center, all kinds of experts to come in and really rip apart their permit. I think they did make some changes because at one time there were going to be over 200 fire hydrants worth of pressure when it floods, because this area floods pretty bad, that would flow into the community from this outpouring from one of the ponds that are on the edges. And so they brought everyone's attention to that, and they ended up moving their outfall to where that wouldn't happen or something like that. So that was a positive thing that happened. If we're going to have it, let's have it in a way that's not going to just flood our entire community with terrible chemicals and the worst kinds of metals. ADEM still awarded them the permits. an individual in the community through his farm decided to sue Grayson Carter and Son because there are laws in the books that you can't have a quarry within a mile of a TVA megasite, and the Toyota plant is a TVA megasite, or within 2.5 miles of a school. And the Auburn Extension Research Center is within 2.5 miles. And we argued that's a school. It is a public school too, because public money goes to it, at least from our perspective. The judge did not see it in our way, and also argued that the other side argued that the TVA megasite was no longer in existence, although we feel it is. And so the judge awarded us a temporary injunction while he decided, which amounted to about 3 days where they couldn't do anything. And
is this Limestone County judges?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A judge in the Limestone County area.
Let's talk a little bit about the impact that this is causing on this community in your church, and why you felt like it was your calling to step up. Because, as a pastor or minister, that this isn't typical for someone to take that stance. But what sort of, because this church being built, in the 1890s, what kind of damage is it causing?
I would argue that in modernity, it's not typical for a pastor to stand up in this way. The Methodists come from a long line of people that stood up against injustices that were happening. We used to argue against slavery. We used to argue against poor working conditions for our workers. We would go and preach to our workers on Sundays as they were heading into the mines, because they weren't let off on Sundays. And so that's really part of my inspiration, is that our forefathers in the Methodist Church that went before us saw something wrong and didn't just keep their head down or their nose down in their pulpits and preached out against it. And, trying to fly under the radar against a community that's poor, that's African American, that can't do anything about it is wrong. It just is. And, putting a quarry within 25 feet of someone and expecting them to continue to live there and to blast as much as they have, I don't know if I haven't said it during this podcast time yet, but I was in this building just a few weeks ago when I thought a car had hit our church, but it just turned out it was just one of their blasts. And I don't know if you were walking in or not, but this church leans a little bit. And so, when you think about like the existence of our church, that poses an existential threat when we might fall over. I also, just because I have some weird interests. I know a little bit about the topography of northern Alabama. I just have always found it interesting that we have so many caves here. Well, we have a karst landscape, and where you have a lot of caves underground, that means that if any kind of shifting happens, if you start excavating, if you start blasting, those caves can have fall-ins. And that's where a lot of our sinkholes happen. If you look at the sinkhole map of Alabama, of the Southeast, the highest concentration is in this central North Alabama that we have here. We had a sinkhole specialist come by and find sinkholes all over this community.
Wow.
The probability that those caves that are full of water right now, that are going to have the water removed because of quarrying, because when they get down to the water table, they just start pumping water out, and it all flows in from all those different sources. They're just continue to pump it out, and then the water is going to be gone. And so this structure that had all of that water in it, that was really holding it up, is going to cave in upon itself. And so we have some concerns about our community, about the houses that are here, about our church. Is it going to cave in? Is the blasting going to cause us to shift just a little too far?
And that's not even the church. These are people's homes, like people's homes in the community too.
Yes, where people are living.
Right.
So
this is beyond just protecting your church and the people to attend church. This is even where they live. This
community
is the entire community.
Yes, and when I say, that we are a close-knit community. We just are. They have been before I got here, and they're even more close-knit now because they fought for each other. And I saw this as an opportunity for us to fight for our neighbors. And, you know, if we're going to love our neighbors, when our neighbors are in danger, we have to fight for them. We can't just sit in the four walls of the church. Because what's the difference between us and a monastery? You know, so many churches behave like monasteries that only open up to the public when it's time for divine worship, and their pastors sit in their studies and craft their sermons for 30 hours a week. They might go make visits out. They might have somebody that does that for them. I don't know. But, you know, they're not out there arguing that Lazarus should be picked up off the side of the road. They're not making sure that the widow has what they need. They're not doing those kinds of things. But we're able, because we know who our neighbors are, to know what their needs are. They probably don't want me saying this, but one reason that I was drawn to this church, since being appointed here by our erstwhile denomination, we're independent now, was because I learned within the first week of being here that a trailer burned here in this community. Well, our church found out about it and very quietly replaced the trailer. And the family, I guess, knows, maybe they don't know, but the church really didn't want them to know. Because they just wanted that to be a blessing that the church could give that person, and for God to know what they did. And so, you know, God sees us whether we do those kinds of things in secret. Anybody definitely sees us when we're fighting out in the open, sticking our necks out for our community. And, you know, Jesus stuck his literal neck out for us. So I see this as a way for us as a church to be the true body of Christ, is to let them crucify us. You know, we have a cross out front for all. So if you want to put us up there, we'd be happy to be crucified next to the Savior. We would. That's fine. But, you know, churches are afraid to do that because they're afraid of what their people in their pews will think. But if you have a church that's already looking outward, and which this church always has, and it's had a history of that. You know, the Scottsboro Boys case, do you know about that?
I don't.
It's a case about
the judge, the statue that's on the square.
Okay,
He was the judge for that.
Judge Horton was one of our members. So we have a long history of, even before that, there are some suffragists that fought for women's rights here. We have a long history of fighting for our neighbors here. And that really empowers me, and that tells me that we can, if they could do it then, we can certainly do it now. And it's okay if it's only two people that see us. You know, those people might.
But this is the difference you're making for those two people, and that's their entire world.
Yes.
Because even if you make a difference for this small community, the people outside of here, you know, I used to drive through here, but I didn't know, you know, like, oh, look, Belle Mina is so cute, da-da-da-da-da. But I didn't, that's all you see it as, is this cute historic town. But when you put a rock quarry here that's causing potential damage, or is causing damage, it's not potential damage, even though it is small, it's like these are people's homes. There's people that have been born and raised here. So even if, whether it be 2 people or 200 people, that's a big deal, because that's their livelihood. And that's kind of where we got started just a little bit, you know, stuff with the city. It was like, you know, even if this just changes one person's life, then that's what our calling was for and to do.
Definitely. And I think that, you know, God sees you when you do that, when you both go into the community and stick your neck out for your neighbors, and to make sure that they're being taken care of, to make sure that the strangers that are amongst us aren't being taken advantage of too.
On the amount of phone calls that have reached out to us and said, hey, I had this fight with the city, but it got nowhere, it went nowhere. We've had dozens of phone calls and emails and Facebook messages, anonymous letter, telling us things of how they weren't able to make progress. And it's like, well, you know, we may not be able to either, but we'll at least try. We'll at least try to help. You know? And so that was kind of what led us even here, because you're kind of fighting somewhat the same battle, but something completely different. So you mentioned about the lawsuits. I think you have one like here locally, and then you have one in Indiana. I don't want to compromise you on anything, but can you tell us like where we stand out on both of those? Or
and not only that, but the personal. I assume that when you kind of like us as well, when you stick your neck out, there's always a personal cost in some way. So if you would like to talk about that, is if it's like, I don't want to say cost you personally, but caused additional stress, additional whatever.
I'd be lying if I was saying that it didn't cause us additional stress, and I think that's probably what they wanted to do when they served us at our home.
100%.
That weekend that it happened, of course, anytime you're served, and this is the only time I've ever been served, you're like, oh my gosh, what is this? But once I read the lawsuit, I realized that they're attacking my First Amendment rights because they're making a claim that because I've appeared in the media, that someone in Indiana, where the corporation that the LLC that holds the property over here has been incorporated, might have been colored against them. I realize this is a First Amendment right. This is what an un-American lawsuit. To fight someone, to try to silence someone using.
So the one in Indiana is just against you.
No, it's against me. It's against my church. It's against another church in the community. Its pastor.
Okay.
I guess one question: what are you suing a church for?
Yeah.
I mean, the church is the people. So what are you like saying? You can't sue each individual person, so you're suing the church?
Yeah.
How does that work? I mean,
I unfortunately my background is in theology and not in law, but I will say that they are saying because we did stick our necks out for our community that we somehow interfered with their lease.
Because you had an opinion and were trying to stick up for the community.
Yeah, and we actually didn't file the original lawsuits. It was another entity that they're suing too, a farm.
Okay.
They have sued them as well in that lawsuit, but they're claiming that us all together were working against them, and because the judge gave us an injunction, it caused them to lose $1.6 million, and so that's how much they're suing us for, is $1.6 million.
Gotcha.
wow.
So it's fascinating that they would do that. And when you're suing someone behind your LLC, no one gets to know your name,
Right.
But that will all be revealed to you in due time. We're not exactly concerned about that if exercising our First Amendment rights, but we're also trying very hard not to make things harder on our lawyers. I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the lawsuits are still in the discovery phase. So we have filed for that to be dismissed because it's totally bogus up in Indiana. It's a silly lawsuit. It's frivolous. And
all to intimidate you.
Scare tactic.
Yeah.
Definitely. And so they have asked for 90 days to prove that we have connections in Indiana, that they have standing up there. We said, how about 30 days? And they balked on that. And the judge up there said, well, you're going to take 30 days. And so they, I think it was a couple weeks ago, they have 30 days from then to try to prove standing and then present that evidence to the judge. And
Gotcha.
I don't know anybody in Indiana. Be interested to see if they find
Well, it's like
someone
a fifth cousin that lived from there or something.
Yeah. But we'll see. We'll see what they bring up. But we have filed an anticipatory nuisance lawsuit against them. By we, I mean my church and 3 other churches, along with some other individuals in the community that live nearby the quarry, are filing a similar lawsuit. And the wonderful people
Against the quarry.
Yes.
Okay.
The same lawsuit that we're all in it together.
Gotcha.
The Southern Environmental Law Center represents all of us.
Okay.
And they're wonderful people out of Birmingham that fight for clean drinking water and clean air for communities like ours. One reason we want the water clean is because it feeds into the Limestone River and because of the water that we have here. And a lot of our farmers around here use this water to water their crops. We want that to be clean. We want our air to be clean. Some of the students that go to school at Tanner High School are not far from their asphalt plant, so they can't escape dirty air if they live here and they go to school in Tanner. So we, as a collective, the churches have all done that. We filed against them. So.
And then last thing, so because with it being in Limestone County, did you try to go to like the commission meetings and talk to your commissioners and
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that went down? I can only assume because I know I've been to a couple city council and then county commission meetings, but I do just because I know that after talking with you and like with Kelly with the asphalt plant, and then you talked about how there is no restrictions, but they actually can do something. So how have those conversations been? Because you being a pastor, like you're being kind of spearheading this fight within this community when we do have elected county leaders who should lead this effort, right? They should be the ones fighting at the state level.
And this would be what, District 3?
Mm-hmm.
So how is that played out when you were, because I would almost think that it's like, okay, well, if our leadership's not going to do anything, then I guess I'm going to have to go and do it.
Yeah, we have gone to them through several avenues to try to convince them to do the right thing, to zone.
Because you found it in like the regulations, like you can do this.
It's in the Alabama Code that commissioners of Limestone County can zone, but they choose not to. And I guess that is their prerogative, but when you talk about elected officials using the means that they have to protect their people, if they don't do that thing, that's called derelict of duty. And, we tried everything to get their attention. We went to their meetings, to their open comment period, made our comments. I went as far as to dress in full clerical garb. I mean, what I wear on a Sunday plus a little bit extra, just to try to get their attention. I told people I will dress like a clown if it'll get them to and dance on the public square. But they just would look at me and that's about it, and move on to the next.
Right, because they're like the commission meetings are like the city council where they don't have to speak back. It's basically just their time for you to make a public comment, but they won't engage if it's convenient for them, right? If it's something that they want to, if it's something that they know what they're going to say, or they're not going to look like fools if they do respond, because you're asking them to go outside of their norm. It's outside of the norm of what Limestone County commissioners have had to do in the past.
I did find it fascinating when Grace and Carter and Son for Women's Day posted all of their women on their Facebook page that work for them, and to thank them and all of that for I guess it's National Women in Work Day is what it was. And wouldn't you know it, Derek Gatlin, our county commissioner's daughter, is employed by Grace and Carter and Son. Don't know if you can draw a connection to that or not, but that can certainly be left up for interpretation.
Right.
I do know that when you do some digging, you find that in his initial campaign, Grace and Carter and Son gave $1,000 to Derek Gatlin, along with I think the landowner of the quarry did. Okay. And so when you
follow the money, you start.
It's
seeing...
really easy, and Derek Gatlin said to someone, it might have even been me, that was just $1,000. Well, that could change, some of these people that live around us, and even my life, an extra $1,000.
Absolutely.
I don't know what it's like to live in that way, that $1,000 is nothing to you.
Right.
I just don't. But, when they give life-changing money to you for some people, and you're serving those people, you better
they
believe.
didn't just say, hey, I think we want to give Derek Gatlin money because he's Derek Gatlin. It's like, oh, he's going to be the commissioner over this area. Like it's not just giving $1,000.
No.
And even if it was $10,000, it's like, what's the reasoning behind it? Why do they feel like they thought that money would influence something or to sway one? Because his seat is up for re-election in 26. So you start putting the pieces together, and you become. I know that with Jared and I, we almost become jaded. Like when people start saying something, we're like,
Yeah.
What, and then you start like trying to line things up, and you're like, okay, well, this person's connected to this, and so on and so forth, just like you just went through. And so it's just seeing how that fight within the county, because you're like, oh man, maybe if we just take this, because I know that within the city, we were hopeful. We're like, man, if we just bring this to the city, like, these are simple
Maybe
fixes.
they don't know.
Maybe they just don't know. And then you're disappointed because you find out that they're not going to do anything, and then they're going to double down and cover it up even more.
Yeah, when you engage with a system that does nothing to help you, when it was set up to do all the things to help you, and it's obvious that they're favoring some sort of an industrial complex over the health and safety of people, you can't help but to be jaded about that, but it's probably not going to be a popular thing to say if people around this community hear me say it, but I will say this: Derek Gatlin is a person. His heart can be changed. And I think that, when I think about Paul when he was Saul, once he became Paul, he realized how bad of a person Saul was. So, my prayer for them, and I do pray for all of our officials every Sunday. I also pray for our enemies every Sunday. Is for their heart to be changed, and for all of us to find a way to live in human harmony.
From our perspective, like with our county, sometimes I don't think that it's necessarily that they're choosing to do bad. Sometimes that they just, it's maybe lack of understanding, lack of knowing what they can do. I don't know.
Perhaps it could be that they are like water.
Because you try to not think like intentional,
path of least resistance.
Path of least resistance.
And I would rather them take the solid state of water than the liquid state of water, and to be formed into some hard way that's going to protect us.
Absolutely.
Rather than just move whatever's going to be easiest for them to get them into the next election or the next position that they want.
Or let's get through this county meeting. Let's just fly under the radar.
Yeah.
So
I guess and maybe you kind of feel the same way with like frustration. It's like, I'm tired of hearing you can't do anything.
Oh, certainly.
No, you can do something. You're just choosing not to do something.
My dad used to tell me when I was in sports, can't never could.
Can't never could.
And I know all of these guys watch football. If your favorite team says we can't beat the other team, they won't. If they say they can't help their constituents, well, of course you can't. You haven't even begun to try. There might be some middle ground for all of us. Did you know that in Europe there is no blasting at quarries? Zero, zilch, none. And they found that it's actually cheaper to do it that way, to not blast. But for reasons I don't really understand, we haven't caught on over here, and I've try to turn everyone's attention towards that. But that's one of those things that gets left by the wayside for this certain reason or the other. And surely money is the root of, the love of money is the root of all evil. So,
And I guess to finish up, obviously we don't live here, but this is the Limestone community. So what can we do? What can the people listening, if they want to help, if they want to obviously besides prayer, besides educating themselves, is there anything else that can be done at this point? A couple of
things, definitely. Number one, vote. When it comes time for you to vote, do not vote for that person that previously held that position. Okay. Even if that person is someone that's a friend of yours. Number two, wear the person that has the current position absolutely out with your phone calls. Wear them out. Call them every day. That is their job, to take your phone call. If they don't take your phone call, they're not doing your job. Number three, advocate for people that are beyond them, like state and federal officials, to use the law, to pressure them to use the laws that are in place to help their community. And if there's anybody out there that just likes to sue for fun and wants to sue on behalf of all of y'all or on behalf of all of us, we sure could use as much suing as possible to try to get people to bend and see our way of thinking. And another thing that you can do if you don't believe us, just come out. Ride across the train tracks
Yeah.
and see just how close this thing is to people and worship spaces.
And I think that that's been easy. That's been another thing that, like, because understanding your fight, I don't understand the whole thing because I'm not from over here, but I do always relate it to the fight that we have. Right?
Certainly.
We talk a lot about North Athens, and it's like nobody doesn't mention, all they want to say is that we're trying to stir up drama, that we're starting problems everywhere we go. But not one time has somebody actually drove to North Athens and tried to say these houses are just in perfect condition for these people to live in. No one talks about the amount of rent that's being charged and how these people are being taken advantage of. Nobody wants to address the issue. So it's like people, if they come over here and you show them this community, you can't dispute it. You cannot dispute how close how this was being, and how their lives have been turned upside down because of this quarry.
And I think that our government officials want for us to stay insular and to only worry about what's around us, but it won't take long,
They don't want you to worry at all. They just want you to see the good.
And it won't take long for them to run out of rock here and to put in a quarry next door to you, is what I want people to understand here. It's the same thing with the fight that you have. It won't take long for them to run out or need to expand their operation and to do what they're doing next door to you.
Absolutely.
And if you'll fight it before it comes to you and help those around you that are fighting it, you'll not have to worry about this evil. There might be a new one that comes up, but you might find that when you need to fight your evil, you'll have a few people on your side because you fought for them. So fight for those evils in the world. Absolutely. I mean, fight against them, not for them, but fight against those evils in the world and things like you. And please tell me what I can do for you. How can I help your fight? You're already in my prayers, but if there's anything I can do,
we take things, one day at a time. Obviously, like, just follow us on Facebook. Help us be vocal, just like you're saying, just to get the word out. If there's somebody that you have an opportunity to talk to about, just tell them about it, because we've talked to people about the rock quarry, just word of mouth, because this community being so small, outside of these couple hundred people, people may not know. And that's why this was the perfect spot.
We always say we don't need a large team, we just need the right team.
Right team.
Yeah.
And that, especially now, people hate on social media so much.
Yeah.
But it can be a powerful tool.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
All it takes is one person listening to this, watching this, and they're like, oh my goodness, like, that's something I want to get involved in, or that's something that needs to be elevated.
That's a niche that I have. I can help with that.
Yeah.
I
Like
know
you're
the
saying,
right person to call.
The anonymous person in Tennessee gave the community the heads up.
And have you ever heard of the chaos theory? Where if you inject a molecule into a system that's a completely, vastly different molecule, mostly it'll swallow that one molecule, but every now and again, it'll change the whole system.
It will.
And so you all are changing your system, and we're trying to change our system here too.
You're making a big difference.
Well, I really see similarities and parallels, and maybe even that we are fighting the same fight. It's just across the county.
It's just good.
Yeah.
Good. I mean, you hate to use the word evil because that's such connotations, but right and wrong.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's not political. It's not anything else. It's right and wrong.
And there was and I know that we're kind of going over our time, so I'll end it here. But I had told Jared that about a year ago, for such a time as this, like, I didn't even know which verse that was, right? Like, I knew it was in the Bible, but like, I didn't know it was Esther, like, 4:14. And I came across like 10 or 15 different people that was being talked about, and this has been across the state. This is from down in Gulf Shores all the way to up here. And so sometimes, like, we met by chance. Then it's like, oh, we're both from this same county, like 10 minutes from one another. There's a reason why we were all brought together for this time. Certainly. Whether it be for a rock quarry, whether it be for an asphalt plant, whether it be for city things, whether it be for a school board going down, in the South Alabama, whatever it may be across the state. And, we're just trying to bring awareness to things that are going on within our county, and just hopefully that we can just make a little bit of a difference. But we really appreciate you speaking with us today.
Thank you
We
for the
learned
time and for
Yeah,
the exposure.
of
It means the
course.
world.
I'm sure. Hopefully, we will get to have an update when all the lawsuit makes progress or gets settled or whatever the best case scenario
Yeah.
is. But we really appreciate it. So thanks everyone for listening. So till next time, guys.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Limestone Lowdown, where we break down the issues, keep you informed, and give you facts straight from the source. Remember, your voice matters, your vote counts, and your community thrives when we stay engaged. Stay tuned, stay informed, and stay involved. Until next time, keep questioning, keep advocating, and keep shaping the future of the Limestone area. We'll see you on the next Limestone Lowdown.